what's up? I'm JD Aronce. I'm trying out for the, I guess, real world or road rules. It doesn't matter, but a little bit about myself. I have 4 sisters, no brothers. I'm from Amarillo, Texas. Living in San Antonio now. It's weird. All my sisters are all scholars, but I'm a dreamer, so I'm doing the band thing. I don't know. I guess my views in life on some things they're I guess optimistic, but everything's gonna be okay. It's kind of the thing.
My family story begins in 1975 when my dad, David, meets my mom, Nellie.
We met in El Paso, Texas, and we dated for 2 years.
My dad and his friends, he says they were the kings of this park, and I don't remember the name of the park. And it was close to where my mom's cousins lived and where she was living with her cousins. And my mom was really competitive, and so was my dad. So they had a volleyball match, and that's where they met. They met at the park. Depends on who's telling the story. He won, she won. Just I'm not sure.
JD was born Jesus David Aronce Jr. on February 15th, 1981 in El Paso, Texas, and everyone knew him as JD.
I had the girls, and David's mother was saying, I didn't want no more children after the 3 girls. And she goes, we need a boy, we need a boy. So we waited, and then JD came along, and we were happy. But at the same time, we were sad because he born with heart difficulties. And I was asleep all the time after he was born, but when they took me to the room to see him and I saw him all wired up everywhere, I just fainted, and I thought I was gonna lose my baby boy.
A lot of babies are born with a hole in their heart, and I guess that's what that's what they say. It'll go away. It'll close up and go away.
He was released about 3 weeks later. We took it home and we take care of him. But I was very protective because I mean, when they tell you there's something wrong with your kid, you try to protect him.
In 1985, our parents moved to Aronce, Texas, where they decided to raise their children.
My dad told my mom, I want to live in a small town. I want to raise my kids in a small town. So he found Aronce.
So David decided to move. He came first, and within 2 weeks, he had a place for us to come, and I was like, oh, really? And we moved to Aronce.
Aronce is a small town, 60 miles west of Amarillo. I don't exactly know how my dad found this town because there's other towns too to live at, but he liked Aronce. So
Amarillo by morning, up from San Antone. Everything that I got is just what I've got on.
JD was the only boy out of 5 children. He had 4 sisters, the eldest being Mia, Martha Emma, Anna Lucy, Marie Ruby, JD, and myself, Rebecca.
First moved to Briona, there was a bunch of little neighborhood kids, and I remember him wanting to play like just guy stuff. But because I mean he had 3 older sisters, it was like, dude, you're either playing dolls with us or you're playing alone.
He was a good kid all the time. He will bring, my mom will be making tortillas, and he'll bring boys with him, friends, and say, hey, you wanna go in my house? My grandma's making tortillas. So my mom will give them fresh tortillas, and he was really friendly all the time since he was little. He was like 5 years old when David got him one of those little motos, 3 wheels motorcycles, and it was 2 neighbors. They one have a 6 years old and the other one have a 5 years old girls, and he'll give them a ride. And sometimes the girls will fight because one of them wanna be first. And
JD had to be well behaved because we would go to church. My mom and dad would be like, y'all better behave. And we normally did, but my mom would pinch the one sitting next to her and she'd be like, pass it on. And it would be passed on. But when JD was a little smaller, he'd be a little more rowdy. My dad would just pick him up, take him to the bathroom, probably spank him, and he'd come back with his face washed, his hair combed, and he'd just sit down and be like real attentive. And I was like, yeah.
But as a child, he was really good to the girls, and he also was kind of spoiled because he'll be sitting eating. He will say, hey, Ruby, give me a fork or a spoon, or give me some water. And JD, you can't get it. Oh, come on. And they'll get it for him. So they always fell for giving in to what he asked for, and all
Yeah,
that
because
stuff.
he was the only boy, you know.
So when we were younger, because having older, I mean, he has 4 sisters total. So he had all these little goofy, nerdle turtle friends, and he would always say, hey, if you say hi to them, you know, because we were the older sisters, and he was like, and, you know, then they'll trade cards with me, or if you're nice to them, you know, like that was his way. I'm like, why do I gotta be nice to this kid? I don't even know who you're talking to me.
As kids, JD used to ask me to make Kool-Aid because I made the best Kool-Aid. I made Kool-Aid for him year after year, not realizing that he didn't want to make it. So it would tell me that I made the best Kool-Aid, specifically fruit punch, the red Kool-Aid.
Because he was just like a little kid that collected cards, or just like a good old boy, an altar boy, you know. So he was a goody two-shoe for the most part, until I think he started hitting that junior high years where he started to change. And it wasn't so much that he wasn't a bad kid or anything, but he was very curious, I would say, about certain things, or he wanted to try things, or you know, just start venturing out.
JD wore a big brother badge like no other. He was very protective. So much so that I remember going to a quinceañera, and I had put on like a skirt, but had shorts underneath. Anyhow, Dad and Mom were in the car waiting for us. I come out, JD tells me, you're not wearing that. Like, what do you mean I'm not wearing this? I can wear this to school. He goes, no, you're not wearing that. Go put some pants on. And so that's just a brief moment of how much he was so protective over.
I would always tell my dad, because my dad was like, you don't have boyfriends, you have friends. So I would say, oh, Dad, this is my new boyfriend. Like, I would have a new boyfriend all the time and tell my dad, oh, this is my new friend or my new boyfriend. So like my boyfriends would come, like when we were younger, like junior high age, they would come in their bikes, right? Because they couldn't drive. So he would let out their air tires while they were talking to us. So my brother was so mischievous that he would literally let out the air and they would have flat tires. So the guys would be like, oh my gosh, look at what your little brother did. And then I would be like, well, he's so little, like, just leave him alone, like something like that. So then it got to the high school and, college years that he was letting out their tires. And it was like, these guys were like bigger. Like one of the boyfriends at the time was obviously Luke's dad. Like he would let out his tires and he would drive around in his Camaro and he was like, oh my God, your brother flattened my tires again. So he would have to like find a way to air up the tires, and I'd be like, I just leave him alone.
I had to have been about 6 or 7 years old, and I remember taking a shower and I slipped and I fell out, hit my stomach to the point where it took the breath out of me. JD heard it, ran into the bathroom, carries me, somehow gets me to breathe. And I just remember my big brother saving me, not realizing what had happened.
I taught him a lot of manners, tell you that.
Yeah.
I taught him how to, when we used to go to a lot of parties, my relatives used to have, right? So there was a lot of people in the, and they had dances and all that, right? So I told him, when you go there, I want you to go all the ways around, shake everybody's hand, let them know who you are, what your name is. And then, because you never know one of these days, how would you feel if somebody came over and shaked everybody's hand except yours? How would you feel? He's like, I wouldn't feel good. I go, yeah, you wouldn't, would you?
We had a love for music. Dad required us to play an instrument. JD took up on the trombone when he was in junior middle school.
Yeah. He would be with me in the truck when I was going out. I'd take him we went to California and probably New Jersey, a lot of places. And one day we went to a song that would come on, if he knew it, he would sing it, and then I would sing it, and we both would sing at the same time. See who had who could master the words to it, right? And it was, yeah. Then we would laugh at each other. He says, no, I would tell, no, that's too high, or no, it's too low.
So the way that they would do it is that I remember is that they would be in a car and like, let's just say that a song would come on and or JD knew the lyrics or Dad knew the lyrics. And so they would be singing along and we would have like singing competitions. Because one time I went on the road with them just because I wanted to see what it was like.
So once I started going over the road, JD was already, when he started to play guitar, he was about 12 years old. And I told him, why don't you play the guitar? Let me show you a little bit. I taught him some chords. He goes, hey, Dad, guess what I did? I said, yeah. So I made a couple songs up, from what you taught me. I go, what? He goes, yeah. You want to hear them? Sure. And he played them, and I was like, what? This guy has a gift, man. He learned it really fast, right? And so that's where he started.
Dad showed him some things, and then he took it to the next level and learned how to play the electric guitar, started investing in equipment and playing other instruments.
They played for the school, a high school. And once they played for the high school in the auditorium there, people started, the kids, they loved it, They started practicing more, learning more songs, more music. He started writing music of his own. And then, so they weren't even old enough to go into the bars and play yet, So if they had an adult with them, they could. So I think we started playing at a bowling alley out there in Amarillo. It just kept on going up higher and higher. Then people started asking them to play for the clubs and stuff. And I was surprised. They said, yeah, hey, Dad, take me over here. We're going to play over there. You need to come with us. I said, all right.
I was taking a summer off from community college because I wasn't ready to go to a university yet. And so I was working at the local music store there in Clovis, which is about 30 minutes from Friona. And some guys, a bunch of nerdy looking dudes came in the music store looking for equipment and whatever. And hey, man, you want to be in a band? I was like, sure, man. They're like, do you have a truck? I was like, yeah. They're like, okay, you're in because you have a truck. So you can haul everything around.
It's surprising because he didn't want to be the front guy. I'll tell you this, he never wanted to be the front guy. He would actually ask his friend like David Martinez. So he was like, yeah, I just want to play the guitar, because he just wanted to be the guy that played the guitar and, you know, to talk to girls and stuff like that. And I think that he kind of used that too to his advantage, because he liked to do that. So they started out with the band like that, where other guys were singing and he was just the guitarist. Then eventually, like, I think he built up his security to be able to sing in front of other people, because he didn't mind playing, because, you know, he had solo parts in band. He did a lot of stuff in band that he really excelled at. But I think being the singer wasn't one that he really wanted to do, but he just got in it and just did it.
He already kind of had an idea, I think, of how he wanted his persona, how he wanted to, you know, act. And obviously he modeled himself kind of after Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind, you know. But the thing was, we couldn't really get into bars because we weren't 21. So we had to have JD's dad like chaperone, you know what I mean? But eventually we just started hitting up local newspapers and flyers and things like that and putting our name out there, local bookies and stuff like that. And then we started getting in, and the next thing you know, it's almost like every weekend or every other weekend all the time.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I asked him is, don't you ever put a tattoo on your body?
No, I told him that.
And he never did.
Never did.
Never did.
So I don't have no tattoos, you know. And I showed the only tattoo I got is right here. That's a pencil lid.
So we were like, look at these young kids in leather pants and spiky boots, and you know, and they're loud, you know. I mean, we were probably one of the loudest bands there were as far as a local band. And then, man, it took off.
She walks around this place looking for something new. We take another shot of champagne, whiskey, and brew. My head spin around, I fall into the sky. Just like the night we met, I met you when you were high. Yeah, I'm going round, around, around, around again. I'm going round, round, around, around again. Down, down. And I stopped this train of mine just to let you go by. We start to talk about the stars falling.
Happened was that I had told JD and his dad, Jamie, at the time, like, oh my gosh, San Antonio's so great. There's so much to do over there.
And that's when he decided to say to the guys, hey, man, you know what? I want to make it big. I want to go to a bigger place like San Antonio, where my sister's living right now. And let's just start off over there. You guys want to go, or are you up to going with me? Well, they all decided, yeah.
The next thing I know is like, hey, we're going to San Antonio. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, we're not going to get any larger here, so let's do it.
Can I pass away? Can I pass away?
See, that day that I pulled up, I drove from Clovis to his house with all my shit in the back of my truck. And I don't think it really hit JD that we were really doing it. He told me that before. He's like, man, I didn't really think we were going. He wasn't even packed when I pulled up to the house, and everybody's just about ready to go. And he's like, shit, I guess we're doing it, you know? And we get there, and the guy was supposed to let us in, even though it was after hours. And of course, he didn't answer his phone. So we spent the night in the parking lot of that apartment complex.
And I went to go to the swimming pool, take my son like I normally do. And of course, in the pool was about 6 or 7 guys out there dancing and screaming and playing music and jumping in the water and acting really foolish out there and really loud at midnight, you know. So young guys, and they kept talking about, you know, we're rock stars and we're on the way up, and we were just, you know, just talking about, you know, plans that they have and what brought them over here to San Antonio and what they were doing outside of San Antonio before they came here.
I remember the guys showing up, and they were all a bunch of nice dudes, and we all headed off right away. We were hanging out, having a good time. And then JD walks in, you know, late as usual, right? Typical JD entrance. He's got blonde hair. I'm pretty sure he had leather pants on. And, you know, he was used to being a big fish in a small pond in Friona, but I don't think that it ever occurred to him San Antonio was a much bigger city, because he walked in right away acting like he owned the joint. And he did. I think we knew right away that he was a rock star.
There was a gentleman that we talked to and that we met. His name was Chris Blakely. And he had a couple of shows, you know, that he had lined up while they were waiting for Spectrum Talent to get them situated. We actually got a couple of shows not me, but the guys at Sunset Station. I thought it was really good. And I think that the people there, the people in the crowd really enjoyed them, you know. And JD's character, he was a good front man, right? He had a lot of energy. The band did as well. They're moving around, jumping around. And we're pretty excited about listening to them, and we were excited.
I think JD found out that my uncle, Chris Blakey, was one of the bigger booking agents there in San Antonio. So he made it a point to befriend me. He was always good at networking. So, you know, right away I let my uncle know, you know, about this band. And a couple weeks later, I think they were playing at Sunset Station in the same ticket as Our Lady Peace. And I remember seeing them play, and man, they did put on a hell of a show. And I was pretty amazed at that point in time at how awesome they were. And they did a good job of networking and bringing people in, and you know, people they worked with, and just before you knew it, their crowds really grew.
They had a lot of following. I think the following was when they went to their jobs, they always had that rock star vibe. You know, they dressed like rock stars, they talked like rock stars. They, you know, they were all, though they had a job, I think they were just making some money just to get by until things kind of lined up for them.
I worked at a company called West, and I was a trainer. And him and Chris Holcomb were actually in my class. And as you know, JD has a outgoing personality, and he attracts people to him. And he came up to me one day after class, and he goes, "Hey, Miss Sandra." He called me Miss Sandra. He goes, "I haven't had a home cooked meal in a long time. How about you invite us to dinner someday?" And I'm like, I thought about it, because, you know, normally we don't interact with the students. So I thought, well, what the heck? So I said, sure, I'll invite you guys to dinner.
The meeting people was just, I'm gonna be honest, was JD, and his mind was like, you know, I don't know if we're gonna hang out anymore, but I'm going to try to get you to come to a show. And then, you know, everybody we talked to, everybody we worked with, everybody we met, and eventually, you know, I was like, wow, these people are pretty cool, and we see them every day, and they became really close friends. And then the next thing you know, we're always together, you know. So it was like another family.
You know, Downpour becomes a pretty big deal. You know, they're playing a lot of shows, but they're getting pretty big crowds. You're getting a lot of attention. I remember getting a lot of attention from the ladies. You know, they had a pretty good following. It happened pretty quickly, but I remember really it was all because of just the energy they had in their shows.
And you know, you feel like you're kind of getting on top of the world. You know, everywhere you go, it's like people know you a little bit, and it's like, I ain't gonna lie, it's a good feeling. I mean, yeah, I was kind of getting used to it there, back home, Amarillo, stuff like that. But when we got to San Antonio, we were like balls to the wall, hit it hard, you know, and just, I mean, I will tell you, it went to my head a little bit, you know. I was like, man, this is weird, you know. And then it's like, how do you not live this way?
I cannot feel the pain I hold again. We share, I share another type of strong emotion. Underneath the mask lies the truth we fear. Uncover and reveal, feel something like a cloud of rain and the shades of day. Open blinds and we'll feel the rays. Brighter thoughts of the mind will say, welcome to the greater place. And we are on the other side, and I am so alive for a while. We are feeling so fine, I can hardly talk about my pride. Yeah.
You know, during this time that Downpour is first hitting it big, you know, JD's a minor, I'm a minor, so is a bunch of us. And so we had this big roadie crew, you know, me and Anthony and John Mideles. You know, we would all pick up a duffel bag and walk in. Some of the bags had musical equipment, some of them had alcohol, some of them were empty, I'm sure, you know, but whatever it took to get inside the club. And once we got in there, you know, we were drinking and JD was drinking. And, you know, as time went on, there were certainly some shows that were a lot of fun. And there were some shows that perhaps got a little bit out of hand, I'd say.
There's the infamous Atrium one, but where we all fell apart. It seemed like I felt like we got drugged, and there's video of that. But
You know, one time we were just standing up there on stage. We only had about 3 songs left on the first half of the 3-hour gig. And he just passed out right on stage. You know, he just fell right into the crowd. And we had a security guard who ended up being the singer later on in life with us. Justin was our security guard at the time. Went over there, picked him up, cradled him like a little baby, you know, with 2 arms, and just walked him off the stage. Meanwhile, JD's throwing the sign, you know, as he's getting rushed off the stage, you know.
I really just remember JD just laughing so hard as he was carried away, and he was pretty drunk that night. You know, I think outside of that, I think the band was getting pretty serious, and they started talking about, hey, maybe it's time to start recording an album.
And things started coming together, and we decided to cut a CD, right? We wanted to go to a recording studio. JD had just finished writing probably about 14 songs, and we're trying to depend on how many songs can we put on an album and which songs that he wanted to do.
man, that was something. I think that right there really hit. Like, man, we're doing it. We're doing it. You know, we got something concrete now that we can take out there. You know, and there was a lot of people that didn't get to do that back then. You know,
Downpour was doing a lot of shows, and had pretty big crowds, but they're all over the place. They started traveling, a lot of things were happening, and I think it started to take a toll, and you could kind of start to see a little bit of fatigue, and some things started to change with the band, and I think with JD as well, in terms of how he felt how things were going.
You know, I kind of felt there was a twist, right? Something was happening with the band, right? It's not that they were not getting along. It's just a lot of things were going on individually for each of the musicians, right? We have, you know, Jamie was married to JD's sister, you know, and we traveled so much and we did so many shows. There was a little bit of friction there.
It started happening when their dad and I, like Jamie and I, got divorced, and I think that probably maybe put a little strain on him, like his loyalty, like where did my loyalty lie? And
I think we felt like we were in a slump.
We had probably about 6 or 8 shows that were still lined up. We finished those shows, but JD kind of made a speech, you know, to kind of say we're going to go on a hiatus for a little while so he can work on other projects. Pretty much those projects kind of put the end to Downpour.
We don't see eye to eye. We all know it'll last forever unless we compromise. I'm down again, giving in, but regrets start crashing in. Never will I feel this way again.
continued with music. I mean, he was a singer-songwriter, you know.
He I think he persevered in some of that transition, right? I mean, it wasn't easy. It's not easy to maintain and keep and start something up, especially when you're trying to find, you know, at that time, this guitarist was Renee, right? And where do you get a bass guy? And you know, it was just very, and sometimes it was just like solo, right? At St. Mary's strip, right? And it was just a 2-man show, right? Or one or him or whatever.
Renee Chacon was a guitar player that kind of played some music with JD, was an amazing guitar player. He played for Dragonfly, was another big band at that time.
So I was managing St. Mary's Pub at the time that JD was kind of transitioning between bands. He didn't seem quite as focused on music as he had previously, but I knew he still wanted to play. And so I started talking to him about coming in and playing an acoustic set there at St. Mary's. And him and Renee agreed to come in and started playing every Thursday. And it was a lot of fun.
And he started getting a little better at his job where he was working. At this time, he was no longer at one of the other facilities. He was working at JP Chase Bank. And he ended up meeting a girl named Marie. And everything kind of changed from there, you know, from music to having a real serious girlfriend at that time.
So I met him at a party. He had was playing that night. He was actually singing. And the funny thing is, I was inside the whole time. I was not watching him sing or anything. He was outside, I was inside. And then when everything ended, he probably noticed there's one person inside that did not care much what he was doing. And he said, "Why aren't you listening to me? All the girls are always," he was always so confident, "all the girls are always like to be watching me. Why are you inside?" And his confidence, I think, really impressed me. And then his smile as well. I think his smile was just very, very contagious when I met him. So I would see him at work and he would always try to talk to me and and I remember that he was confident and he was very charismatic. And so we just started talking and he invited me to a party.
Talk about real relationships. So I think the relationship he had with Marie was unique. And, you know, obviously there was ups and downs, just like any other relationship. And, but I think it gave him a test or taste, should I say, of what a relationship should be like.
I never liked live bands. And but I just loved him, so I was just so happy to see him, and that was it. You know, he made me enjoy that, something that I did not know. I was definitely not a groupie, definitely not.
There's definitely a transition that takes place because you know, JD is definitely in full-on rock star mode, and suddenly now he's in boyfriend mode, and really to some extent he's in dad mode.
So I have 2 children, Byron and Charlize, and JD wanted to meet them right away. He was very excited. I was actually concerned that it was too soon, and I was concerned that he would accept me with 2 children because we were really young. But he did not mind at all. He seemed to really be eager to want to be involved.
It allowed him to anchor, and I remember how he was very connected to Charlize and Byron, Marie's kids, and how he embraced them no matter what the situation was.
You know, and JD was finally, you know, getting things together for himself, and he was trying to find something new and kind of rediscover himself. And he had a nice girlfriend, you know, along the way. She was real supportive of what he was doing, and she was always there. And I really liked Marie. She was really good for JD. It was a good change for him.
We always felt like we had the same personality, and we liked to be the center of attention. He loved to walk in the room and everybody looked at him. And well, I wanted everybody to look at me. And so he would say, "Well, that's Beauty and the Beast. Don't be so tough on Marie for being the Beast. Don't be so tough on Marie," he would say. So that's a funny, cute thing he would always say. "But it's Beauty and the Beast, but don't be so hard on her, okay, for being the Beast." Just, you know, we both like that.
He would always say, "Instant family, just add love," you know, and now it was my turn to tell him, you know, instant family, just add love, you know.
Instant family, just add love, you know.
Instant family, just add love.
Like instant family, just add love.
So one day, since I was a single mom and I had the two kids, I felt like it was better to be in Arizona with my family. And he was just so supportive and packed all my things. And we were there with my parents and my family. So he was pretty excited.
Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. When you're on a holiday, you can't find the words.
Charlize was too little to really put a label on anything, but Byron would definitely call him dad. He would call JD dad, dad. And so right away, I think he really looked up to him and loved him. Byron's also very affectionate, and JD's very affectionate, or was very affectionate. And Charlize is not. So I think Byron and JD had a lot closer relationship, and, JD loved to show him things and how he did things. And he was very good at teaching, had so much patience with teaching. And so that was really, really beautiful. But the relationship is like they both really thought that they were father and son.
I think JD liked Arizona, but I think he was starting to get a little bit homesick, missing family, missing friends. And I think at this point in time, he starts turning back to music, starts writing more music. And I think that's when he decided, I'm going to start a band in Arizona.
And so that was his intention, to form a band in Arizona. And I was 100% supportive of that. So we got a studio. He had a little studio. He had all his recording things there. And he had a parade of people and musicians coming in and out of that house. He was forming his band when he was living at home, in that home. And so he would constantly have people coming in and checking them out and trying them. And I think the first one that I remember was Russ. Russ was the first one he picked, if I'm not mistaken.
JD came into my life. I'm not really sure what year. Russ Martin found him on Craigslist. We were looking for a new singer for our band. I think that's a true story, Russ. Russ Martin here found JD. Probably you put out an ad or something that said, average band with above average guitar players and looking for singers, right?
So JD meets Russ on Craigslist, which is hilarious. Eventually he meets Scott and Brad as well, and they hit it off, and they start the Tempe version of Red Republic. And this is an important time because it starts a whole new chapter in JD's life.
I think it was a musician's lifestyle, and me being a single, but I was not single, but me having the responsibility of two children, and he had a different lifestyle. So he had a lifestyle and wanting to always be out and always be busy. And so I realized that I couldn't give more under those circumstances. It was just very difficult. I didn't leave him because I did not love him. I loved him, and I think I'll always will.
Losing Marie was really tough on JD, but it did inspire a whole lot of songs, and I think it really allowed him to fully commit to Red Republic. He moves down to Tempe, moves in with Scott, and then it was off to the races.
So JD shows up, and he's this larger than life personality. He's a front man in every sense of the word, and that was something that we were lacking with our previous band. Playing good shows and bringing a lot of people out and just creating fun times and bringing everybody together. And that's he was the heart and soul of the band for sure.
Don't call me when you're feeling down. Don't call me when you're all alone. Stop fucking with me. Stop fucking with me. Don't call me when you're feeling cool. Don't call me when you're all alone. Stop fucking with me. Sit back all that shit you gave me. Take it home and take it with it's gone. You're so gone. All these years we spent together.
I think the shows that were the funnest for me were when we went to New Mexico a couple times and played a couple shows, playing to people that have never heard us, and you know, and making them believe it. You know what I mean?
This goes out to Frio, Texas. I went to my 10-year high school reunion, and they said, "Now, JD, we saw you on the World Wide Web." Swear to God.
Don't be modest, JD. Don't be modest.
They said, "Don't be modest, JD. We saw you on the World Wide Web." I said, "Yeah, I'm on there. We did on some YouTube. Very small towns. Love it."
Give it to him.
The song goes out to everybody that is not here, and we wish they were here. That's water, Mom. I promise. If we can record this, we're gonna put this on YouTube. So you think you can tell heaven from hell, blue skies with the pain, could you call a great feeling? Cold blue rain, a smile from a veil. Did you think you could tell? Did they catch you in the train? Your heroes were gold, and hot ashes for trees, and hot air for the cool breeze, and cold comfort for change. Did you say, walk on part in the war, would leave war in a cave?
Obviously, the marquee was big when we did that. That was probably one of the best days of my life, playing the marquee. That has always been a dream of ours. And we were able to do that a couple times, but the first time we played the marquee was right around Christmas time, and that was pretty awesome. So we were able to kind of, after all the hard work and determination, get over there and play the big stage. You know, the stage that we've seen, you know, all of our favorite bands, and when bands come to town, they play the marquee, and now we're playing in the marquee, and I'm standing in the same spot that Billy Joe from Green Day stood, or Unwritten Laws performed, or Brand New, or all these bands that we've looked up to, and we're now on that same stage. So for me, that was probably the best one, that first marquee show.
Thank you for having us. This color, the color always